gospel of the Lord.
It's been an interesting realization. The older I get, the more capacity I seem to have for paying attention. I notice more, not just in the people around me, but in myself. Paying closer attention to my inner life has led me to a deeper self-awareness. I've begun to watch myself with a little more honesty, which makes me think and notice how I tick. Back in December, on the fourth Sunday of Advent, which also happened to fall on the winter solstice, I preached a sermon about shadows. If you were here, you might remember that specifically, I talked about the latitude at which the church finds itself, in the traditional pattern in which we always face east, and how that creates problems and leaves half of the church shadowed in shadows for about half of the year. And I told the story of the way in which that creates icing problems. In fact, can you see that dark shadow that goes like this on that one window? That's snow and ice. Do you see that little piece of kind of white bubbling through the blue? That's where water is seeping in through the stones into the building. I sit right here. I look over there. And so it drives me nuts. And so I told the story of my journey up on the roof and the 3-hour marathon of shoveling snow on a 55-degree day when it was starting to melt and starting to seep into the building. And how that was followed by a hasty drive to Buffalo to meet with the bishop and a vain attempt to dry my socks out on the car's radiators. You may remember that. Here's the part that I think is ironic. Despite preaching about shadows, it never dawned on me that I might have stumbled onto my own shadow self, shadow side. After sharing it, numerous members of the church told me quite clearly, "Stay off the roof." And yet I remained concerned about the snow. Again, I sit right there and I look right there. So as I was falling asleep one night after Christmas, I was not dreaming about sugar plum fairies at all, but I was meditating on the snow that was currently on the roof. And it dawned on me that my mistake was waiting until it warmed and making the snow very heavy. And I had an epiphany. What if I went up while it was snowing, while the snow was fresh and light? And so on New Year's Day, less than 2 weeks after supposedly learning my lesson, I was back up on the roof, this time bringing reinforcements with me. My son, Aiden. There's proof, should you doubt it. Don't tell OSHA. There's us on the bell tower. It's pictures of him. I'm taking them, obviously. Very beautiful up there when it's snowing. But I discovered that it doesn't really solve the problem. After another 3 hours of a fool's errand of unsuccessfully trying to clear the roof, I started to finally learn my lesson. That whole episode revealed something about me, to me. So I'll begin with a small confession. I may, or may not, have certain obsessive-compulsive tendencies. Surprising to you all, I know, but this is a hard realization for me, and a hard one to own. especially because I've spent years, a whole lifetime in fact, teasing my father, who has even more pronounced version of the same thing. His need for order, the exact way to wind an extension cord, to be coiled just the right way. His inability to leave on time because, did I leave the stove on? Let's unplug the coffee maker, that obsessive compulsive thing. Or of him trying carefully to tie down every item in the back of his truck bed so nothing would slide. When the show Monk, starring Tony Shalhoub as the defective detective with OCD, came on TV, he couldn't understand why we found it so funny. It just often annoyed him. He'd point out, it's funny when it's Monk, but when it's me, you don't laugh. To which we would say, we don't live with Adrian Monk, but we do live with Frank Foder. So yes, this realization is completely humbling. It turns out that about half of obsessive compulsives, that tendency is tied to genetics. So apparently I come by my proclivities naturally. When I see a problem, especially a physical one, I feel myself compelled to fix it. Immediately, thoroughly, and preferably by myself. Sometimes that impulse is faithful stewardship. Sometimes it's just my anxiety wearing work gloves. I'd love to tell you that this realization led to a quick and dramatic change in my life. Sadly, it was only while I was toiling away at my current obsession that it dawned on me. And what is it, you may ask, this current obsession? Well, if you've noticed a certain little extra sheen on the pulpit, or the eagle's head on the lectern, or any other brass in the church, you've discovered it. One morning before morning prayer, in fact, our verger, the guy in the outfit, Paul Johnson, found me alone in the church, busily burnishing away. And he asked me, what would it take to make me stop? I told him, we're running dangerously low on Wienol polish. I'm waiting for more bottles to come in. This is tube 3 that I've worked through. He said, hold on. I need to go buy shares in Wienol. If you're looking for a pro tip, insider trading tip, buy Wienol. I share this confession because as I've been polishing the brass, I've been reflecting on something deeper. This growing practice of attention has been teaching me something gentler. The light we carry does not begin with us, and it does not end with us. The light of the divine is not something we manufacture through effort or control. It is something we receive, tend, and reflect. So where does light come from? Not from our striving, not from our need for perfection, not from our compulsions to fix every shadowed corner of our lives or make all the brass shine. Light comes from God. Light comes as a gift. Light comes to us even when our socks are wet, our plans are unraveling, and our shadows feel stubbornly stuck. Our work is not to create the light, but to pay attention to it, to clear space for it, and to let shine through the ordinary and perfect lives we are already living. And this is where Jesus meets us in the Sermon on the Mount. He doesn't say, try harder to become light. He doesn't say, hey y'all, fix yourself up so you might bring more light into the world. He simply says, you are light of the world. Not because we're flawless, not because we've cleared away every shadow from our lives, because God's light has already taken up residence in us, within us. Jesus doesn't ask us to create the light. He asks us not to hide it, not to tuck it under our fears, not to smother it under our need for control, not to bury it beneath shame or striving. The light's already here. Our task is to stop getting in its way. So the practice is not heroic, it's simple, and it's daily. This week, Simply notice where you are trying to manufacture light, trying to fix, manage, perfect, or prove yourself. And notice where the light is already being given to you in a moment of kindness, in a breath of relief, in a small act of kindness or honesty, in the grace of being seen as you are. Let one little light shine, not to impress anyone, not to save the world, just enough to make the next step visible. Because when we stop hiding the light we've been given, others don't just see us more clearly, they glimpse the God who shines through ordinary lives like ours. So I wonder, where are you hiding the light that's been placed in you? Where does your embarrassment cause you to cover over who you are with a bushel basket? And where is God's light already shining through you? For me, my latest obsession with polishing the brass has become a strange little parable. The patina on brass is thin, protective layer that develops over time. It signifies age, authenticity, and character. We can look at it and feel frustrated by its presence. Or we can recognize that it carries history and even protects what lies beneath. And yet sometimes the patina does need to be polished away so the light underneath can shine more clearly. By naming my obsessive tendencies, I'm learning to integrate my shadow side rather than to deny it. And in so doing, to shine more honestly, not more perfectly. So I wonder, what is the patina in your life this morning? What is the part of you that feels worn, embarrassed, or easier to hide than to bless? Marianne Williamson famously wrote, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us." We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. You were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. That's another way of saying, let your light shine. Don't hide it under a bushel. As sages of old have said, and the poet Mary Oliver reminded us recently, prayer is nothing more than paying attention. Paying attention to what is happening in our very lives here and now. Paying attention to what is stirring in our hearts. Paying attention to the light that is already present, even when it feels dim, distracted, or discouraged. This is precisely what St. Paul is affirming in today's epistle when he writes, "I came to you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. My speech and my proclamation were not with plausible words of insight, but with the demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on the power of God alone." In other words, Paul is naming what we are tempted so often to hide, our weakness, our fear, our trembling. He doesn't pretend to shine by his own brilliance, his way with words. He simply shows up as he is and trusts that God's light will do the shining. Which means the work of paying attention is not about becoming impressive, but about becoming honest. Not about polishing ourselves into something presentable, but about letting God's power meet us right where we are. So here's the invitation. This week, practice one small act of attention every day. Not fixing, not perfecting, just noticing. Notice when you're hiding. Notice when you're shining. Notice when you feel the urge to control and gently ask yourself what you're afraid of losing. Notice when you receive kindness and let yourself receive it without deflecting it. You might even try this simple prayer at the end of each day. God of light, where did I notice your light today? And where did I hide from it? Don't rush to judge what you see. Just stay present. Let the noticing itself become the prayer, because the light does not need you to manufacture it. It only asks you to make room for it. And as you do, quietly, imperfectly, faithfully, your life becomes a lamp on a stand. The real illumination the world is hungry for, the light needed. Through prayer and attention, God is slowly revealing God's own light in you. So let your life submit to this reality. And let us say that ancient Aramaic word together that means, may it be so. And all of God's people said, Amen. Standing in body or in spirit,